Everyone. It's so exciting to be here with all of you, and it's very exciting to be here with all of you. Self-made is an idea that is a core value for Self Magazine. We think of it as the highest compliment that you could ever pay a woman, because it's better than being smart, it's better than being pretty, because it's about doing stuff. It's about channeling all of your talents and all of the things that make you amazing and then doing something with it. And these women really espouse that value to the core. But I think one of the weaknesses that self-made women sometimes fall prey to is that they put themselves last. They're so busy doing all of the awesome, amazing things that they're driven to do and seeing their visions to fruition that sometimes they neglect, the most important key to all the success is taking care of yourself. And so we're so happy to be able to talk about this today, to remind ourselves and be mindful together that to take care of yourself is to really contribute to taking care of others. So we have a star-studded panel. Rebecca Foon, the co-founder of and co-owner of Moda Yoga, who found yoga after a back injury, but also is a composer, a cellist, a vocalist, a woman of many talents. We have Danielle, who is the founder of Sakara Life, a delicious and amazing food delivery service, and a former model and actress. And we have another Rebecca, Rebecca Perrick, who will be heretofore known as Rebecca P and Rebecca F, who is the founder and CEO of White Radish. And before that, she was COO for Deepak Chopra's Radical Wellbeing Center, and the co-founder of the Global Foundation for Eating Disorders. And she also spent 10 years in finance. So she's really had the gamut of experience. But I'll start with you, Danielle. We just did a piece in the magazine called The End of Dieting. And basically we talked about how women today don't want to diet anymore. The market and the soda industry, the diet soda industry is going down the tubes. Diet books, in decline. And you started this food delivery service with that sort of, not even in mind, but for your own healthy choice. How did you come to Sakara Life?
Yeah, so something's wrong with my mic, so I'll use this one. I actually got into modeling because I was studying medicine. I was pre-med in college, and modeling was a way to pay the bills. And I'm so grateful that I found it because it made me face my deepest, darkest insecurities. Which was I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't thin enough, I didn't love my body, I didn't love my weight. So I turned to dieting, I think as we all do, and I turned to food, and I tried everything. I tried every juice cleanse, every low-carb diet, the paleo, everything that I could think of. And none of it worked. And in fact, it all left me feeling worse than when I had started. And what I had learned through that roller coaster dieting was somehow at the end of it, food had become the enemy. I was at war with food. And then I had a even bigger problem. My problem was no longer, okay, I have to worry about how I look and my weight. I was really sick. I was actually really ill. So food was the enemy. And when you're sick and you're no longer I don't care about my size, I'm ill, you become really desperate. And so I thought, okay, I'm not going to go to med school. I need to study nutrition. I need to find the answer. I believe in the power of food as medicine. So I dedicated a year to finding that answer. I studied nutrition. My best friend and business partner and we dedicated a year to just absorbing as much information as we possibly could. And we boiled it down to a food system. And after we tried that food system for a period of time, the results were amazing. I realized I had been figuratively and literally starving myself, and my body was craving nutrients. And this incredible shift happened where I realized, it's not about counting calories and worrying about how much I'm eating and carbs and points and dieting. Am I feeding myself the nutrients that I need? Am I actually eating enough? And that shift was the big shift. That was one of the aha moments, because there were a lot. But that was one of them. And so Sakara didn't start out as a business at all. It was my answer, and it saved my life. And once we realized the transformational effects of eating that way, we thought, that's our mission in life. That's what Sakara is going to be. It's going to be the platform with which we get to share all of that knowledge, because I know that there are so many people going through similar versions of what I went through. Food is the enemy for a lot of people. And so I think that through that journey, learning that diets don't work, it really does have to be a lifestyle, and it has to be a choice, and you have to choose yourself first.
Powerfully said. Rebecca P., you have also had your own transformation, career transformation, one that would also have a lifestyle transformation. Can you talk us through how you went from finance and made this sort of transition into this space?
Yeah, sure. So I wish that I could say that I was super clear and I wanted to dedicate my life to wellness and I had this master plan all along, but that's definitely not true. I call myself an accidental banker because I didn't actually intend to work in finance, and I ended up there and absolutely loved it. And I think that's something also that a lot of people see somebody who left a corporate job and went to a different job and assumed you must have been miserable, you escaped. And it was actually the contrary. I really loved what I did for a long time. The motivator in terms of why I left banking was I just didn't have space in my life. I needed time to just do all the other things, like all of the living, the social life, dating, eating, cooking, working out, all the things that I enjoyed, travel, and I just didn't have space for it. So I decided to leave after 10 years to explore what that could look like. So I really left in search of balance, not in search of a career shift. And then through that process, it's sort of a longer story in terms of how I ended up doing what I was doing. When I left in the spring of 2011, I really wanted to take stock of what were the things that I'd been craving in all those years and what was sort of lacking. And I wanted to get my hands dirty and figure out how to build a business, and specifically something in the nonprofit sector, because when I graduated college, I wanted to work in the nonprofit sector and found it impossible to navigate and figure out how to find the right one, how to get a job there, why can't you actually find opportunities readily in NGOs? It seemed easier to get a job in a trading desk than at a nonprofit, and I needed to kind of figure that out and understand some of the bureaucracy that NGOs face. So I just decided to start one and build it and see what could come of that. And that was a 3-year experience that then led me to a desire to take another path, which led me to Deepak, which led me to today.
And how do you feel? Do you feel each job sort of brought you to another life stage, which sort of channeled a different mission, but maybe was the original one in the first place? Yeah,
absolutely. So I think that I think those sort of first 10 years were so formative. I just graduated college. That was, I grew up in that environment. I became sort of this trained corporate soldier, and so that mentality will stay with me always, but I think that's a good thing. I knew I didn't have space and I wanted balance, so then I had to go kind of find it and figure out what that looked like. And I think that through trial and error, I figured out there's a lot of things that I read that I should have been doing to feed my soul, but they didn't work for me. There's a lot of there was so much you should do this, you should do that. And the pressure and the intensity of what I should do in that next phase felt not dissimilar to the rigidity of a banking job. And so I think the real challenge was being comfortable exploring that and really listening to the what do I want. I think also it was hard to let go of the fact that I was really good at that job, but I didn't really like it. And so, I liked it for other reasons, and it fed my soul in some ways because it was intellectually stimulating and it was challenging, but it was very much a hamster wheel because I wasn't on a track where I was trying to get somewhere else. So being able to kind of raise your hand and say, I'm going to opt out for kind of no good reason was tricky. But each transformation has helped me get more clear on the things that I do really enjoy, the things that I do want to do. And it also helps me get much more comfortable living in the gray. There's something in that murky transition. And in a lot of ways, I'm in transition again right now in the business that I'm building. And being able to sit there and be comfortable in the questions, I think is a real skill that took years to cultivate.
No, I think that is a skill that comes from job experience, and life experience, and it's not so much really for no good reason. In fact, it's very good reason that you just have to learn to honor the uncertainty of what is this reason? I don't know exactly, but I know that it's maybe not exactly right.
And there's sort of like an intuition about it. It was like there was a very specific night. I remember I was like crawling into bed. I was exhausted. It was like the heart of the financial crisis. I had a client that wanted to trade European sovereign markets, and the trader in London would only do business talking through me. So I had to get up at 3 a.m. to cover the European markets, and it was like maybe midnight, and I was crawling into bed, and I slipped my BlackBerry under my pillow so that I could, like, the vibration could wake me up. Thank you. And I didn't know what the other way was going to be, but I knew there had to be another way. I was like, this doesn't work for me. Like 3 hours of sleep, BlackBerry under my pillow, I don't know. And you know, you don't want to say I quit my job because I didn't want to sleep with my BlackBerry, but I really did quit my job because I didn't want to sleep with my BlackBerry.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
I just didn't want to, you know, and the job required it, so I had to get a new job.
Isn't it so interesting that for women, it's very much about intuition, but for men, it's called instinct? I mean, it's the same thing, but like we learn to follow our intuition, we learn to follow our instincts, but like sometimes we just language it a little different. For you, Rebecca, you sort of opted into a lot of things. And I think it's really amazing that we live in a world where the multi-hyphenate is sort of totally commonplace in a way. It's very accepted. Can you just talk a little bit about what you do now and all the other things that you do in addition, and how maybe all those passions and all those different pieces of their life kind of help you be your best self?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. So I got into yoga, as you mentioned, because I was hit by a car many years ago and had a severe back injury. And I had been dabbling with yoga and Pilates, but never really made it a daily practice. And I was really freaked out by the injury and the pain. I'd never experienced that kind of pain before. And so I got more into yoga and Pilates, and it totally healed my back. And that was really revolutionary for me to discover that self-healing is actually possible when you think you might be living with daily back pain for the rest of your life. And so that led me, I never thought I was going to be a professional yoga teacher. I was a musician touring in a rock band for many, many years and had a very, you could call it dysfunctional life in terms of health and well-being, just because of the nature of the music industry and rock and roll, and just how hard it is it doesn't matter what kind of touring you do, it's just so hard to maintain a healthy lifestyle on the road. And my business partner, Sarah Neufeld, is also in Arcade Fire in a band. And so we came together, and we've been old friends since childhood, but we're like, man, we gotta figure something out here, because we love music, and it's so powerful, and it's such a part of ourselves and channeling creativity, and it's crucial to who we are, and we know we have to do it for the rest of our lives, but this is not sustainable at all. And so we both got into a yoga practice and decided to open Modo Yoga NYC together in New York with our partner Guillaume. And that's been really revolutionary, I think, for all of us, because it's been so beautiful within the yoga world and within the community that we have, but also the community we've tapped into in New York. It's been really powerful to see how yoga, health, and well-being can really become a transformational framework for positive change in the world. And that, for me, is what it's all about. It's like, I want to create a life for myself where I can be sustainable in terms of having a healthy lifestyle, eating healthy food, doing yoga, doing whatever kind of activity with friends and community, and then also be able to bring my music into the world, into the yoga studio, and do work for positive change in the world and shifting consciousness. And that, for me, is beyond anything, like bringing people together to try to make powerful change in the world, but coming from a foundation of health and well-being, and try to create really strong magnetic energy around you and your community that's channeling positive energy and happiness and love, and try to transform that into everyone around us. And that also attracts people that are into the same mandate and same purpose for life. I think you can really create, through numbers, incredible change. So that's where a lot of our charity work has come into place. So we've started a bunch of different initiatives. One is Jungle Keepers, doing work in the Amazon, and we just purchased our first 3,000 acres in Peru, in the most biodiverse place on Earth. So exciting. Yeah, and then one other fun initiative is Pathway to Paris, which is a concert that we're supporting, that I'm organizing with another woman, Jessie Paris-Smith, that's going to be taking place during the UN Climate Change Conference in Paris, to try to bring awareness around the UN talks and the importance of establishing a legally binding agreement on climate.
So you're not busy at all. Do you find all of you, are entrepreneurs and
What's after
are
this?
working on your passion projects? Do you find that actually that makes you busier and it makes you even more committed to doing more work that you love, but still it's more? How does that resonate with you?
Yeah.
Any of you, feel free to jump in.
I think whether you're working in your passion or not, we're living in an age where instead of having to make time to work, you actually have to make time to sort of live. And especially as women, we're the caretakers, we're the mothers, we're the givers. And I think, we all sort of have to learn the hard way that we can only give as much as we allow ourselves to receive. And that you have to really learn how to take that time and allow yourself to have the input also, not just always the output.
How do you manage that actual discipline of doing that? I mean, any of you? Rebecca?
Sure. I think, is that going to work? There we go. Wellness rituals, for sure, and having the structure of that in life, but that didn't come overnight. That came over years. I know that I'm definitively more busy now than the days when I thought I was too busy and I went searching balance. And I think a lot of that is that work versus life is a lot murkier now, right? Before it was like, okay, this is definitively a work dinner, this is a work thing, I'm working too hard, I want space. And now it's sort of like, well, but it's like kind of social and this person's amazing and I love her, like I want to have dinner with both of you right now, like you're amazing. But it's like, is it work, is it friendship, is it social, like what part of you is it feeding? And so part of what I've been exploring, and it's new, is sort of getting really clear on my intentions and my desired outcome for each interaction. So if I say yes to a coffee during the day, if I want it to be social because I like this person and I want to see them, great, embrace that and own that. If I really am only saying yes because I think there's a good business opportunity, then I don't want to spend 20 minutes talking about like the new nail salon that opened. Like I want to really get focused and so there's sort of this like murkiness around business conversations now that didn't exist before. So it's definitely hard.
So now it's more sort of a daily check-in or like an hour by hour check-in, like is this work or is this social?
Yeah, it's evaluating those interactions, and I think that the rituals that I've implemented in my life to create space to sort of think and get clear on things become more and more important. So it's like I recently read something about introverts versus extroverts, and I always thought that, I'm bubbly personality, like really easy to chat and be social, so I assumed I was an extrovert. And according to this book, the fact that I feel depleted at the end of a long day with social interaction means that I'm an introvert, according to this book. Like I said, I'm not an expert. And that I really need alone time to charge my battery. And so now that I realize that, I'm really mindful about having to find that space. So if I have a jam-packed day, it actually makes me really anxious, even if they're things that I love. So that means I have to get on a mat and have a yoga practice, because that works for me. It means that I want to cook a meal, I need to get extra sleep. I have to just be very, very clear on setting those boundaries. So even if it's a friend that I want to see, it's like, no, the answer has to be no, because I have to get on a mat, because I have to be quiet.
Right.
So it's about making that commitment to those rituals, because then it makes everything else doable.
Rebecca, yoga is your livelihood and it's your business. So how do you find time for rituals? yoga as relaxing now as it was before?
Well, coming back to what Rebecca was saying about authenticity and cultivating positivity and health in your life, I think that's my pillar too, is everything that I try to do it with honesty and authenticity, because I think that's where really beautiful moments, because at the end of the day, it's a series of moments that we have stems from. So in terms of a yoga practice, definitely, I'm lucky in the sense that I have to do yoga in order to do my livelihood, and I have to take people's classes and give feedback. But I also, it's part of my work, so I need to, and within my yoga studio, I need to cultivate positivity and healthy energy all the time when I'm there, which can also be too much at times.
Sounds kind of exhausting, cultivating
So I
healthy
do-
energy all the time. It's
Well, I
just
just
like a
can't-
very high
I
bar.
can't bring
for
bad vibes to the yoga studio. So I have to always check in and make sure that I'm staying true to that and that it's honest. So I do need to leave the yoga studio as well and cultivate my own practice elsewhere, which is also not only doing things outside of yoga too. So I've been lucky to find other people in the health community that have created community for me as well, that allow me to take space so that when I come back to the yoga studio, I can bring positive energy. Yeah.
The idea of check-ins, you've all sort of mentioned it. I think one of the things that we're all becoming much more conscious of is like listening to our bodies and what are our bodies telling us. Your body brought you to a business. What are the little signs that sort of show that you should pay attention, that things might be getting a little off kilter? I feel like sometimes busy women race past them, but I feel like the most conscious and effective women pay attention to them. Like for me, like I get an eye twitch. And I just know I'm really tired and something bad's about to happen. So like, stop, get some rest, do something else. What are those things for you?
For me personally, it's definitely digestion. You know, I talk a lot about how food is actually information. And, you know, I know when I'm stressed out and I haven't been prioritizing food because my digestion is completely out of whack. And it can happen, surprisingly, pretty fast. And so I recognize, you know, and it's everything. It's, you know, bloat, it's being swollen, it's fatigue, I'm tired, I'm cranky. And you know, when the minute I decide, okay, it's time to prioritize the information I'm feeding myself, and I mean that through food and also through my thoughts, that's when I really start to see the change in the other direction. So for me, it's definitely prioritizing the food, the nourishment, and also the thoughts that I'm feeding myself.
Yes, my body screams, like it tells me, like I know instantly when I'm spread too thin. I think, well, for those 10 years in finance, it was sort of each year had a chronic illness, and I kind of joked about it with my family. It was like the year of the bladder infection for a whole year, the year of the respiratory infection for a whole year, to the point where my sister-in-law, yeah, my body screams. And my sister-in-law, who had a similar job, used to give me like immune boosting supplements for my birthday every year. So I went from that extreme of just sort of like owning being chronically unwell to now where it's like the slightest, for me it's a sore throat because I talk so much. So like when I get in bed at night and my throat's sore, I'm like, I'm talking too much, I'm expending too much energy. And I start to shake a little bit, like I feel really amped up, like adrenaline is coursing through my veins because I've been on for so much. And that's when I'm like, oh, okay, I need to watch The Big Bang Theory tomorrow night and cook dinner and do nothing. You know, like that's when I know that I need to retreat to that place. So a lot of it's mood as well. I notice that I'm much more, now that I'm just more in tune with what's happening in my body and in my mind energetically, I can notice a subtle shift in the way that I perceive events that I probably ignored before. So if I'm in traffic and I get really anxious about it, I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling very grounded right now, because this shouldn't be destabilizing me this much. Like, I get super anxious, I get really cranky, I feel judgmental, I hate myself, I hate everyone, and that's when I'm like, I need to breathe.
It's a good check-in.
Yeah.
Breathe. So we listen to our bodies, but also our minds are always talking. Like you've all talked about sort of like the shift in mood, the thoughts that you're feeding yourself, and the thoughts that you find entering your mind, which maybe feel negative or toxic or not helpful or not supportive to yourself. How do we manage those? Like you know when your body's telling you something, so you watch The Big Bang Theory and you like go to bed early. But when your mind starts going in those directions, how do you sort of bring the tailspin back?
I have a new technique.
Oh, please share.
So I have this challenge with myself to try to keep my thoughts positive, and when they cycle into a negative energy, I try to call myself on it and change it into a positive thought. And then this also comes into play with problems. So it's this technique where you have your life problems, and sometimes they're really big. You're like, oh my God, I feel so sorry for myself. I have such a big problem. But then the trick is to go and be like, wow, this problem is an amazing opportunity. And then you play this trick on yourself, and you're like, wow, this problem is so awesome. How can I tackle this problem and turn it into this incredible opportunity that will transform my life? And I was just on this river trip in Idaho, on the Middle Fork of the Salmon. So beautiful if you ever get a chance to go. And we're river rafting, and there's all these huge rocks everywhere, and it was quite a spiritual experience just being on this boat, these river rafting boats, and gliding, like just going along the current with the river and not forcing anything. So you're just at ease moving along the river in this beautiful landscape, and then these huge rocks that would come into play. And we sometimes try to gracefully navigate them. Sometimes you hit them head on and then something happens. Maybe the boat flips, maybe it doesn't, but then you go back into the boat and everything's okay. And I see that as a metaphor for this whole thing. Like these rocks are like problems that come into your life, and you just try to float. Life is so much easier if you just go with the flow of the river. And then when the rocks come, to move with them and let them be opportunities.
It's a very good trick. I'll be channeling the Salmon River more often in my life. No problems, no problems. Do you guys have any mental tricks?
I often think, whenever I'm having negative thoughts or I'm stressed out, we're pretty simple, actually. And I think it's just about boiling it down, because there's always a root cause to those types of things. And it's probably not the thought I'm telling myself. Like, it's not that I have a big zit on my forehead. Like, that's not the real issue. The real issue is, I was stressed, I didn't sleep enough, and actually I'm really upset at one of my employees. And, you just have to find, like, the root cause and actually deal with the real issues, because the mind chatter is really, it's so distracting, and then you're not even working on anything that's gonna end up helping you. You're just sort of doing the busy work. So I think finding the root cause has been really useful for me.
Yeah, I would say there's a quote that I once heard in a class, and I think that it's Pema Chodron that wrote this, but I could be wrong. But she said, "You are not the weather, you're the sky." And that really resonated with me, where I think about, so whatever's happening in that moment, I like kind of picture a thunderstorm, and I'm like, this is just weather, it's moving through. Like it feels like the end of the world right now, and whether it's like the text fight that I'm in with somebody's brother, sister's cousin, like where it's so insignificant, or really like existential, what am I doing with my life? No matter what, it's like, I'm the sky. This is just weather. It's just moving through. There's sunny days, there's cloudy days, there's rainstorms. It's just noise, and it's moving through. And the drama, I start to really identify. I try to look at it objectively and be like, this is, it's just a distraction. It's like taking me away from the things that I value. And so if I can take a step back and sort of be a little objective about it and like look at it from here, almost like to put my life in a bubble and observe it from the outside, it's like, oh, this is so not a big deal. And I try to stay grounded in that.
Well, I think that's a lovely note to end on. Thank you all. We are all the sky, not the weather.
Hi, I'm Claudia Chan, and I'm the founder of She Summit. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and community. At She Summit, we believe there is a leader and change agent inside everyone, and our goal is to unleash you to lead change from where you are for issues that you care about to benefit your life, your family, your workplace, and even the world. There's so many ways to follow us if you're interested in this leadership content. You can actually subscribe to this YouTube channel, of course, but also visit our website where you can sign up for our newsletter and learn more about our community, new leadership courses that we're rolling out, and our 2019 She Summit conference. And I also just launched a podcast based on my book. It's called the How We Rise Leadership Podcast. So please follow us. There's so many ways to follow us. And I'm so excited for you to join our new generation of leaders to lead change again for our lives and for the world.